570 Munris Avenue was, for many years, the location of a Safeway supermarket. Today, it is the location of the first LEED certified shopping center in the state of California.
What we decided to do in this case was to take apart the old building piece by piece and reuse those pieces in the new building. We think this makes a lot of sense in terms of salvaging very usable wood, and we see it as the wave of the future.
Of the 29 LEED points we were going for on this project, 4 of them involved deconstruction. So we were looking at 2 questions. Why do deconstruction, and how do you do deconstruction?
The owner's response to the idea was philosophically supportive, but they wanted to know, is this going to cost me more?
My concern as a construction manager really was predominantly those things that I'm held responsible for, and that's quality of construction and price and time.
Can you get certified without spending any extra money? Can you get certified without spending any extra time? And at the end, we found that we could.
So why is deconstruction important? Why does LEED consider it important? Primarily because of the amount of waste that's in our landfills that comes from construction, as much as 30%.
When I'm building up a new building, it's just unique to find that I can take down an old building and not destroy the wood and build up a whole complete new building with it. It's just really great that you can do that, and you know, it's not wasted, it's not demolition, it's not taken out by a crane, you know.
This is a way to educate the public into what can be for all of our projects that we see being undertaken around town. And why not, if we can do this one, why not do all of them that way?
We want to show how this can be done and how you can be efficient out on a job site, and how to make a really beautiful building using some old wood that really tells a great story.
So my company has no prior experience in deconstruction, no prior experience in building green, and it was Jordan Daniels & Howes that came to us to suggest we could do this project LEED certified. We had already raised our capital, we had already set our budget, we'd already brought our partners in, we'd already set our schedule, and we told Jordan no twice, but he kept coming back. And the third time, we said, all right, look, if you can deliver on budget, and if you can deliver on schedule, then yes, okay, we're game, let's try. But you have to show us that you can get us there.
The project is in downtown Monterey, so by avoiding roughly a dozen trips to the landfill, we reduced impacts on the local community as well as the emissions. What we found when we looked inside the old building was a tremendous resource in salvageable material. Specifically, we found roughly 47,000 board feet of good quality Douglas fir. So in March of 2007, our team mobilized and started taking the building apart.
This job is unique in that it is a partial demolition. The back walls stay, the side walls stay. It has to be taken apart very carefully, and it's handwork. This building, if it were slated for complete demolition, the cost to save it would be too much. A complete demolition, the percentage of salvaged materials would go way down. All of the conduit, all of the sprinkler system, piping, all the metals will be scrapped and recycled. The wood that's not valuable for reuse in its state it is will go to a wood chipper. The big I-beams that you see, those will be taken down and reused in their original state in a project that doesn't require engineering. Once the lumber's pulled down from the joists, we're just piling it at this point, and then later a crew will come in, pull all the nails, clean up the hangers, and get it ready for its next use. Gracias, Gabino. We might even be able to do one more dump at the end of the day today. On this project and other similar projects, we sort our materials. One bin is for the wood for the chipper, another bin is for the construction and demolition debris.
Our subcontractor on the deconstruction is a specialist. They do this all the time. So we were impressed with their efficiency and the way they worked in a noisy environment without having to talk to one another. They seemed to all know what to do. It was well choreographed. And of course what we're doing now in cleaning this material is very simple work. We have two carpenters placing the material on sawhorses and then using a pneumatic nail kicker to back the nails out, clean them up, cut off the split ends with a skill saw and stack the material and segregate it according to quality and length.
The nail kicker works great. It's one of the best things. When they first told me about it, I didn't think that there was such a thing. I've been in construction for 20-some years, and this is the first time I've used it. You can't beat it. It pays for itself in 4 hours.
So another less obvious factor is that lumber needs to be graded before it gets approved by a building inspector, as long as it's being used in structural purposes. So what we did in this case is we hired a lumber grader, a professional who came and actually stamped the lumber so that we could use it in framing and roofing. And it was $900, so money well spent.
Are we ready down there? Okay. Okay, I'll show you a few more of these. This is what we don't want to see.
Right in the middle?
Yeah. When a tree does this, a couple things have taken place here. That's like a burl on a tree. So when they cut through this burl, it just weakens it to the point where if you see what's going on there, you just flex it, break it. So there's no strength value on this piece of wood. But past this point, from here all the way up there, that'll make a number 2 structural. They have to add a 2. It's gone. See a piece like that. A beautiful piece of wood. This, it checked here, it's got some checks here and stain and everything else, but I would still call it number 1. It's a beauty. Number 1. There's some shake right here, Jay. There. See, that's right at the center of the piece. So that's what allows that tree to do this in the wind and not break. So still makes it a good number 2. It's like us, if we get cut, scar tissue will show up. Well, Doug fir does an interesting thing, it makes pitch. And you'll see pitch in that shake, and it's trying to heal itself.
Huh. Do you see any difference between the wood here and the Doug fir that's coming out now? Is this a...
the quality of wood that's coming out now? Oh, wait, this is the best.
Yeah.
This stuff that you're getting nowadays, most of these trees are 40, 50 years old.
What do you think these are?
Hundreds of years old. But I'll tell you, Jay, I think you did a great thing here by saving this. This is some really nice wood. 2.
When we went into the evaluation of going green or not, for us the obvious factors to look at were, is it going to cost us more money? Is it going to cost us more time? We learned some things along the way. Did it cost us more money? Actually, no, we saved some money. We deconstructed the roof structure from the Safeway store and managed to save some really interesting lumber, originally milled back in the 40s, perhaps the 30s. We managed to salvage the Carmel stone, the local indigenous rock, off the Safeway building and use that again. We ended up paying no dumping fees on the project. Instead, we were paid to take our recycled materials away, all of the concrete and things that we couldn't use. 96% of it was recycled, and we didn't spend any money to get rid of it. In the end, we saved about $10,000. When you look at a project like this, you have to look at what you have. Do you have lumber that can be recycled? Do you have rock? Do you have anything that you can use again? And can you save money by reusing these materials? And then you have to counterbalance what you've got against the time involved. For us, we spent an extra week in deconstructing the building rather than simply demolishing it, but it was a week that we had anyway because we didn't have permits to start construction. So, you know, the effect in the end was neutral. We saved $10,000 on a $6.5 million project. Who's good enough to budget that closely? In the end, going green cost us nothing.
It's been an easy process for us. We sat down with Daniels & House, our general contractor, and came up with a lead score sheet and asked them to give us some preliminary pricing on each point that we were seeking. And then we made decisions on what we were going to try to attain, point-by-point basis, based on budget and what we thought we could attain with the time and money we had available.
There were some unique characteristics to 570 Munris that helped us get our green certification. We got credit for the fact that we're in downtown Monterey, or a downtown district. We got credit for the fact that there's a bus stop right across the street. So not every project will get the kind of credits that we got. Most old buildings, if you get into deconstruction, have wood-framed roofs, and maybe they don't have quite the amount of lumber that this one in its bowstring truss had. But I think much of what we did has general applicability across the board.
One of the most significant costs of LEED certification is the paperwork. I was involved in that, and so was the project engineer. Between the two of us, we probably spent about 450 hours altogether, and that's not insignificant. Since it was my first time, I didn't charge the owner for my time, simply because I believe in the LEED certification process, and we wanted to get some experience with LEED.
So, you know, LEED certification was never intended for buildings like shopping centers. It was originally drafted for owner-occupied or occupant-operated. In shopping centers, I own it, but my tenants have direct connections to utility companies. They operate their own space, and the basic LEED criteria is not written for buildings like that or for multi-tenant industrial buildings where the tenants manage their own air conditioner. But the industry is coming there, the shopping center industry, and the retailers are coming there. I've spent time with the head of government affairs for Walmart and Target and Pete's Coffee and a bunch of merchants. Well, they're all headed that way. Why? Because the consumer is headed that way. So I think there's a great opportunity to see more shopping centers, most shopping centers, built green. But it's a process of working our way through the green building standards. There is a move afoot in Washington, D.C. at the federal level to change the way utility companies are regulated, and it has the potential of turning every shopping center and every industrial building into a power plant. If that happens, things change a lot. We get much more green. As it stands today, all that sunlight that hits the roofs is just lost.
If you're going for points for recycled content or regional materials, you've got to prove to them that you've purchased materials, for instance, from a local resource, and that in fact those materials have been either harvested or extracted from the ground within a certain radius from your job site. And I went to contractors thinking they're never going to be able to provide that kind of documentation. I mean, steel contractors like Advanced Steel and Salinas, amazing shop, all kinds of activity. They're all about steel. And you wouldn't think they'd necessarily know what kind of recycled content the steel has. But as soon as I mentioned the word LEED, they knew what I was talking about, and they were able to provide that documentation, which ended up allowing us to get those points.
Most of the stuff is a high recycled content, and we've got papers to show where they were made and what was included in the contents. So then we have mill test reports, and that way everything is to the right AWS code and class, and kind of staying on top of that. Jay told us basically we're kind of in to do the job, and that weekend my brother was already working on it, and by about 4 days he already had three-dimensional, rough drawings ready to look at. And
catch all their mistakes.
And the thing is, what it does is it probably boosted them 2, 3, 4 weeks on the project and made it possible for this thing to go for this September thing that we're trying to do.
Yeah, at least.
Which is good.
I'd say more like a month.
Yeah, and being we gave you all that time. See, that's where you give me a little extra and you don't push me so hard.
That's right.
Well, what got me started on it was, you know, our current situation of being, you know, dancing around in the high 60s in terms of our recycling percentage. And it's really hard to get past that without something really heavy in the waste stream. And we're looking at the state coming to us and mandating a 70 or 75% standard in the not too distant future.
The construction and demolition waste ordinance is something that we've been drafting for some time. But prior to introducing it to the community, we want to get some pilot projects under our belt. And the goal is to divert up to 75% of demolition waste from the landfill and recycle it, and reuse it, and reclaim it.
The Monterey City Council has generally tried to work from a strong base of incentives where everybody feels like we've accomplished something together at the end project. Everybody can celebrate.
As an example, for our residential customers, whatever goes in the recycling container is free. What you put in the trash costs you money. So the trash subsidizes the recycle. The more you recycle, the lower your garbage bill is going to be. So we actually have a very small container. We can carry that same incentive to a contractor. So whatever has to be simply disposed of as it comes out of a project is where we make the charges. But anything that goes in a recycle bin we can do for free or at a much reduced cost, so that the recycling, if you will, is subsidized by the cost of the disposal. And if we're going to incentivize, I think we have to take what is currently our residential program and move that to construction, demolition, and deconstruction as well.
We find that a heavy dose of public involvement early on, finding stakeholders in the community that really care about it, to help mobilize the community in favor of it, is far more successful than just writing a law and say, here it is, take it or leave it, or take it or be fined.
If we can get construction demolition, no, there's no challenge at all. I mean, we're going to roar past the 70 or 75% standard if we're able to do that. It's just very heavy material. And so I don't see any issues there. Now, there's some other political and maybe some public acceptance issues out there that we'll run across on the way, but we'll prevail long term.
Right now, the development community believes that economically it'll be more expensive to reclaim the materials because the materials have to be separated out rather than putting everything in a bin and having it hauled off for the landfill. But in the end, the demolition and reclamation is actually a less expensive process. So a lot of what it comes down to is education, educating the community.
As you look at these loads, it's a mixture of a little bit of everything. We have wood, paper, cardboard, foam, styrofoam packing. So what we do is manually pull the amount we can, or we will use the bigger equipment to pull big amounts where it's more concentrated. That's stuff that we manually pulled off of the sort line. We get about 300, a little over 300 tons a day average over on this side, and we get about 120 tons a day on this side. Last month we did 69% diversion.
Wow, that's great.
So that's the best we've done for quite a while.
Really good.
Well, this is a good look right here.